you have your Bibles, we're going to open them up to 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And while you're turning there, I just want to say hello to our online audience. Want to tell you again that you matter. There are clearly reasons and seasons to not be in the building. And I don't know your reason or season, but so grateful that you would still tune in. I want you to know that you matter. You're a part of this community. If you want to go to goanchorchurch.com, there's opportunities there for you to fill out prayer cards, praise cards, contact information. We would still love to connect with you, whether you can make it in this building or not. Thanks for being a part of the Anchor community. We are starting a brand new series today. We spent the last 9 months on a series called He is Worthy, and we're jumping into a new series today called Double Vision. And I intend for this to be a 9-week series, not a 9-month series, but you never know. We're going to go for 9 weeks on this series called Double Vision, and we're jumping into it today. And our theme verse is going to be 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 11. You will hear this repeatedly over the next 9 weeks. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 11, and it says this: because we understand our fearful responsibility to the Lord, we work hard to persuade others. We're going to say it again. Because we understand our fearful responsibility to the Lord, we work hard to persuade others. My prayer is that over these next 9 weeks, that these words would be true of Anchor Church, but even more specifically, these words would be true of you individually. That we would be a people that understand our fearful responsibility to the Lord. And because we understand His worthiness, we understand our responsibility as we are followers of Him, what He has asked us to do and participate in, that in response to knowing Him, that we would work hard to persuade others, that we would not just be inward focused, but we would be outward focused. Now, next week, I intend to teach on that verse and verses surrounding it much more extensively. But today, it's going to be essentially, remember when you had to write papers? Some of you, you're still writing papers. I'm more of like a speech guy than a paper guy, go figure. But when you had to write a paper, you always had like the introductory paragraph. And you didn't dive deep on any certain topic, but you're just kind of lining out, here's what to expect in this paper. Well, today is the introductory paragraph for the next 9 weeks. That we're not going to take the time to dig into certain aspects of today's content. We will unpack it over the course of the next 8 weeks. So if we're ever hitting something and you wish you knew more about that, or that we would get a little bit deeper in that today, come back for the next 8 weeks. We will do a more thorough dive into this. Today is just the concept of the vision for this series called Double Vision. Clearly this verse, that's our theme verse, talks about persuading others, reaching out to other people that they would come into faith as well. So two words we're going to talk extensively about is the words evangelism and discipleship. And this will be clearly a series, 9 weeks, challenging you individually to engage in the work of evangelism. For a quick definition, for those that maybe are not familiar with church terms, evangelism, you probably have some sort of concept, is when you're trying to get other people to buy into what you believe or what you're doing. Specifically when it comes to the gospel, evangelism is the spreading of the Christian gospel by public preaching or personal witness. It's sharing the gospel, it's sharing the good news of Jesus, either by public preaching or by personal witness. Now I want to say both are essential, both are important. That there are times for the public preaching. And this is what some people are gifted in. This is what we're doing here right now, is the public teaching, declaration of the gospel. But it is not isolated. Evangelism is not isolated to those who have the gift set of public speaking. Evangelism is for all of us because it is also a personal witness. It is simply you with the people around you telling the story of what God has done in your life. So evangelism is both. We need to understand that these work together, the public teaching as well as the individual witness. Discipleship, if we just boil down what a disciple is a follower of Jesus. So discipleship is the process where someone who has put their faith in Jesus grows into maturity as a follower of Jesus. And it comes through various aspects that we will dig into. So we have discipleship and evangelism. And sometimes in the church world, these two positions seem to be at odds with each other. Even sometimes churches identify as one or the other. Like, are you guys more of an evangelism church? Is it just like we just share the gospel with as many people as possible? We just try to fill up rooms and try to get more viewers and more listeners because we want as many people to hear the gospel as possible, which makes sense. Like, we want everyone to hear the gospel. And yet maybe that's so much the focus that there isn't much beyond sharing the good news of Jesus. Other churches and people could identify more like, no, we're really focused on discipleship. Like, we're going to be really deep. We're not going to be very wide. Maybe it's not as many people, but the people here are going to know what they believe. They're going to be deep and rooted and faithful, which is awesome. We want to have disciples who are rooted and faithful and mature in their faith. And sometimes it can feel like, well, you got to be one or the other. What we want to communicate is that these two positions are not at odds with each other, because evangelism is the first step of discipleship. That if we're going to disciple someone into a mature follower of Jesus, it has to have a starting line, and the starting line is evangelism, telling people the good news of Jesus. But we want to be a church that doesn't just share the good news and hope everyone figures it out. We want to be a community, a church that shares the gospel with as many people as God allows us to, but then we faithfully come alongside and move into maturity those people who have put their faith in Jesus. That discipleship and evangelism, they actually go hand in hand, and evangelism is the first step of our vision of as a church to disciple as many people as God allows us to. So if we have groups and we have discipleship vision, we want to be a people that are mature and deep. Yes, this is a value and a vision we have for our church, but step one is that we're evangelistic church, that we're actually reaching out to people who can be discipled. So we're going to spend some time in these 9 weeks, not to neglect discipleship, but there may be an overemphasis on evangelism because this is step one. And we are a young church, and we intend to be here for a long time and disciple and grow into maturity. But step one is into discipleship is evangelism. So we're going to focus on that. Maybe a little heavy when it comes to the discipleship and evangelism. Our simple mission statement as a church, maybe you've seen it, is that we exist to see the lost found and the found anchored in the hope of Jesus. This is kind of just a way to say the vision of we want to be a church that both evangelizes and disciples. That the first half, we exist to see the lost found, is evangelistic. That we would tell people the gospel of Jesus. We desire to see the lost found. But our mission statement doesn't end there. We don't just exist to see the lost found. We exist then to see the found anchored in the hope of Jesus. What does it mean to also be a church of discipleship? That someone puts their faith in Jesus, and then we go through the longer process that isn't just a sermon from a stage. It is walking through life with people to see them grow and mature in their faith in Jesus. So evangelism and discipleship, it's not at odds with each other. And even in our mission statement, we are a church that dreams and desires to live out both. That we would see the lost found, we won't turn our back on evangelism, and the found anchored, we will not turn our back on discipleship. We're going to revisit a challenge that I gave in an online-only message December 27th of last year. We were online only because it was between Christmas and New Year's, and it was a simple vision for those of you that call Anchor your home, a simple challenge and a vision for you in the year 2021. Now, since December 27th, 2020, our church has grown. Many of you were not a part of Anchor Church that long ago when 2021 came. You guys were not a part of Anchor. Our church has grown a lot. So some of you have no idea what the challenge was on December 27th of 2020. Some of you, because it was the week of Christmas, you didn't even watch. You didn't listen. You don't have a clue what I'm talking about right now. I'm not mad at you. And some of you listened and you don't remember. Jeremiah remembers clearly everything I've ever said. But some of the rest of you don't even remember what that was. So we're going to revisit a challenge, and we now have 4 months left in this year. And so some of you had 12 months to fulfill this. You got a big head start. The rest of us, we might have 4 months on this challenge that we're going to revisit that relates to evangelism and discipleship. So we're going to dig in here. I'm excited for this series, excited for this message here today. Any of you like time management fans? You got like different strategies, and I'm a big time management guy. Some of you are out there. I don't know why you're ashamed of it. Like, we get a lot done, my time management people, like loud and proud. I'm big into time management. I'm all about the lists, and I'm all about the charts, and I'm all about like time blocking, and I love time management. And some of it is just the nature of my role is there's no one like telling you what to do throughout the day. Like you got to just say, here's a massive amount of things I want to get done. How do you manage your time most properly? And so I've got this one app that I got, I don't even know how long ago on my phone. It was this app called 3030. It's probably been as long as they've had apps, as long as I've had an iPhone. I don't know, maybe 12 years I've had this app. It's called 3030, and it's a time management app where you can just type in everything that you want to do throughout the day, and then how long you anticipate that task taking you, and then you can move the tasks around. So if you got a meeting at a certain time, you make sure that it's the right, and then it shows, okay, if this is how much time you're going to spend on all of these tasks, this is what time you will be done at the end of the day. And then what is amazing is you chart it out and say, okay, everything I want to get done is on the list, and then you hit play and you race it. It's so much fun. Like I said 15 minutes, it only took me 12. I will get done with work 3 minutes earlier than expected today. And like it's amazing. And you can do all these adjustments throughout the day, and it is just so much fun, and it helps you get productive. You never have to wonder, will I have time to get to that task? Because it's on the app. I'll get there later. And then you get like some reward. If you save some time, I'd go out for a run. Like it is just the best time management app. However, over the years, the makers of this app, the developers, they didn't continue to update it. They abandoned it. And but I had it downloaded, and so people would ask me about it, and you can't download it from the App Store. Like it doesn't exist anymore, but it was on my phone already, so I just keep rocking the 3030 app. However, a couple of months ago, Apple updated their phones. My phone updates, and I get this notification when I open my 3030 app, which is like the only way that I'm able to get anything done. And I get this notification that says that this is so outdated, and because my phone has been updated, it's updated to the point where this app no longer works on this phone. I lost it. It was tragic. It was awful. Couldn't do it anymore. I promise you, it devastated me. Like I've spent so much time these last several months researching other apps, and there's not one just like it. Like you get Elements and all these different ones, but I cannot find the exact app. And I mean, I am losing sleep, literally losing sleep, searching the internet for something that could do this exact thing this app did. Couldn't find it. Been trying all these other ones, buying all these apps that was just a waste of money because they're not the good one. Just trying to figure out. And so I've been trying to figure out how do I manage my time better. And then one night, I promise, I couldn't sleep. It's the middle of the night. I'm just thinking about this app, and I had an epiphany. I have a very old first generation iPad mini. Whenever that first came out, this has got to be, again, 10, 12 years ago. Cracked screens. I didn't even know exactly where it was. Haven't used it for years. I got up, found it, pulled it out, charged it, turned it on. It still has the app. And that thing's so old it can't update. So now I pack around an iPad that is only a 3030 app. Like it is way overkill, but I've found rhythm once again. Because time management matters so much to me, and it's amazing. If you got like tips and tricks, time management, send them my way. I'm all about the tips for how to manage your time well. But here's the deal. We all, to a degree, manage our time. When we look at our day, or we look at the week, or we look at the year, or we look at our life, the reality is we all have lists of that which could be accomplished or desired to be accomplished, and then we have to figure out how are we going to manage our time. And when you have a list that you need to accomplish, and you come to the recognition that this is all that I would like to get done, yet this is the time I have available to get it done, we all do something. What is it when you have too much to do and too little time? What do you do with your list? Anybody? Nobody. You guys are so, just abandon it, go back to bed. No, we prioritize is the word I was after. You say, I'm not gonna get everything done. I can only get some done. So we prioritize. Maybe I set that up totally wrong. I'm gonna go back, watch the tape, kind of come back next, I wish we had a halftime where you could go make adjustments. I did that one wrong apparently. We prioritize. You say, I'm not gonna get everything done. What is the most important to get done? And this is what we do. If you're going on a vacation and you're running out of time, we all know that you pack the bags before you clean the garage. Maybe you wanted the garage cleaned before you take off out of town, but you can leave with the garage still dirty. You got to get the bags packed. When we have company coming over and we're running out of time, there's priorities that are clear from my wife. Like, what do we need to get done? It is clean the toilet. It's not clean the closet. It's shove everything in the closet so we look more clean than we actually are, but let's make sure that the toilet is clean. Like, if I come out and like guests are 5 minutes away, I'm like, hey, check out this bag that I got for Goodwill because I went through my closet. That is not, I mean, that's a good thing to do, but this is not the right time to do that. Like, go put that back in the closet and clean the toilet. Like, priorities when we're running out of time. We all have this in various aspects, and I want to bring this now to our spiritual life and the amount of time that we have on this planet. The truth is, we have limited amount of time. We don't have forever on this planet. We don't have forever in this lifespan. We have limited amount of time. And therefore, if we want to be the most effective, the most efficient with the time that God will allow us and has allowed us, we must prioritize. So the question I want to pose as we jump into the series is, what priorities should we be focusing on? Maybe what are God's priorities for my life? If our time is limited, how do we be most efficient and effective? As followers of Jesus, what is highest priority? I want to pose that question. We could probably come up with a list of really good answers of what priorities would or could or should be. But I want to challenge with one focus today and through this series, because I think it's easy for us to busy our time with good and maybe miss out on the priorities that God has set as highest. So the question is, what is Jesus' priority? If he is our leader, if we are following him, what is his highest priority, and how do we come alongside and participate in his highest priority? I want to share a couple of verses with you, starting here in Luke chapter 19, verse 10. Jesus is speaking himself, and Jesus says, the Son of Man, which is a way that he identified himself, saying, myself here, the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost. Essentially, Jesus gives us his priority statement. Jesus says, the reason I'm here, the reason I came, the reason I exist right now is because I want to seek and to save those who are lost. I want to take just a moment on the word lost. It's a word we use often because it's a biblical word of those who are not followers of Jesus. Now, some people who are not followers of Jesus maybe wouldn't identify themselves as lost. So what does lost mean? Lost is in essence that your soul has a home. And its home it's the presence of God. It is the forgiveness and the hope and the purpose that only the gospel of Jesus can bring you. And so many people are walking through life and their soul has not yet found its home. Their soul is lost. Their soul is wandering. Their soul is looking for hope, is looking for fulfillment. So regardless if circumstances are really good right now or circumstances are really poor right now or anywhere in between, it's not about do you have a vision for your life, it's do you have your soul at home. And if your soul is still wandering and has not come to a place of life abundant and life eternal through the gift of Jesus, that is by biblical definition lost. That this is a soul that has not yet found its way home. And Jesus said that it is his passion, his mission, that those that are lost, whose souls haven't found a home, that he would go seek and to save those who are lost. That he wants all souls to come home into his life, into his grace, into his forgiveness. Now, I want to tell you that Jesus said this 2,000 years ago, but it is still his purpose statement. And it is what he is actively still doing, is seeking out and finding those who are lost and bringing them to salvation. I want to tell you the fact that some of you are here today or viewing online who are not followers of Jesus, but you're here in this moment is because Jesus is hot on your trail. He is still seeking you out and desires that your soul finds its home in his presence. That he would begin this relationship with you where you experience his grace, his love, his hope, his forgiveness. That you would experience life abundant and life eternal. That this is still what his passion is. And us as followers of Jesus, we begin to love and care about and prioritize what he prioritizes. That it also should be on our hearts, not to just attend a church and just to celebrate and worship God that we have been forgiven and that we have life eternal offered to us. But we should then also buy into his priority of seeking and saving those who are lost. I want to go now to Matthew chapter 28, Verses 19 and 20, those of you who have been in the church world for a while, these verses are known as the Great Commission, like Jesus' great charge to his followers. This is clearly what I want you to do. This is after the ascension, after the resurrection of Jesus, right before his ascension, some of his very last words to his followers. He says, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you. And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." So Jesus, he says his passion is that the lost would be found. And then he says, then I want you to make disciples. I want you to teach them. I want you to baptize them. I want you to continually grow and mature these followers into disciples. In other words, Jesus is saying that his passion is that the lost would be found and the found would be anchored in the language that we use. He wants us to go evangelize. And then when someone puts their faith in him, wants us to walk alongside of them over the span of time that follows and see them grow into mature followers of Jesus. He wants the lost found and the found anchored. Maybe you have a bucket list. This like what I'd like to do before I die. I don't know what's on your list, but I want to challenge you today that if it's not on your list, to put on your list, and maybe even at the top of your list, the priority that Jesus has, that we would make a disciple. I want to encourage you as a follower of Jesus, if there isn't a strong passion inside of you to live out his highest priority for his followers, something is amiss. Now, go climb the mountains, go jump out of the airplanes, go buy the boat, go do the experiences, write the book, do the everything. But on that list, as followers of Jesus, we ought to have as one of our highest priorities that we would live out the commission that he's given us to make disciples. We have an eternity where we get to worship God and enjoy his presence, but we have a limited amount of time to actually fulfill the commission of seeing the lost found and the found anchored. So this has to be one of our highest priorities. What would it look like for you to add this to your bucket list? I want to say this again. Making disciples and sharing the good news of Jesus is not just for preachers. It's not just for people that work at a church. This is for every follower of Jesus to engage with. I want to bring this a little bit closer than your whole life's bucket list. What is it that you hope to accomplish by the end of this year? We got almost 4 months left. What are you hoping to do? What vacation are you hoping to take? What purchase are you trying to make? What promotion would you like to get? Like what is it that you would like to do? What concert do you want to go to? I think it's amazing that we get to experience these beauties of life. But what about if in these next 4 months, we also had a passionate drive inside of us to live out Jesus' highest priority, that the lost would be found and the found would be anchored, that we would engage in what it would look like to make a disciples. Again, making disciples is not a future calling for when you're older, when you're more mature, when you got more time, when things slow down, when the kids are out of the house. It is for every believer. Anytime, any place, the people around us, that we would engage with them and share the good news that we have found in Jesus. I think it's important for us to note that Jesus says to go make disciples. He didn't say to go gather disciples, go recruit disciples, go search out disciples, go discover disciples. He said to go make them. When you make something, it means it doesn't currently exist. That we see the highest priority that Jesus gives is not just to gather as many current disciples as you can in one room and feel good about yourself because you got more people in the room than last time. The goal was not gather the disciples. The goal was to go out and make disciples of those who are not currently followers of Jesus. Now I want to say that people that are already believers in Jesus, they are welcome at Anchor Church. I think it's an important step to get yourself in a community that speaks your language, that encourages you, that builds you up. I think it's really important to be in a community where you can minister to the Lord and minister to others. And so current believers are welcome here, but our goal and the highest priority that Jesus gave us was not to try to get other people who already believe in the same room as us. It says go develop those who are not currently followers of Jesus into disciples of Jesus. I look at this idea of discipleship, and sometimes discipleship can be really hard because discipleship isn't as quick as a sermon, as a speech, as watching this video or having this conversation. Discipleship is a much longer process than evangelism. And if you consider what it means to make a disciple or become a disciple, Discipleship can't happen inconsistently. It can't happen in a one-time really good sermon. Discipleship can't happen from a distance. The discipleship happens up close and consistently. It's why we are a big fan of groups and why we're going to have group signups in 2 weeks, is because discipleship, not that elements of discipleship can't be at play on a Sunday morning or that you can't grow and mature through someone speaking from a stage. Like, those things are elements that are valuable, but that is not in and of itself discipleship, going to a church on a Sunday morning or watching online. Discipleship has to happen in community. Again, it's why we believe community as one of our core values is we grow best when we grow together, because discipleship has to be relational. Now, this is no excuse for myself or the other leaders at this church, but what we want to communicate to you is myself and the other pastors and other leaders in this church, we are still humans who have limited capacity for relationships. We cannot be the disciplers of this entire church right now. And if this church continues to grow, it would be impossible and unfair to expect the leaders of the church to be the relationship that disciples. So either we'll have a bunch of people show up who aren't being discipled very well because they're just getting limited content from a speaker without relationship, or we've got people who are disappointed that they don't have the relationship that they're looking for because it's not with the person who's on the stage. I want to tell you, to be a church that lives out the lost being found and the found and be anchored, what it requires is not a few skilled people on a church staff. What it requires is a body of believers who understand our calling and our vision from our leader, from our King, that we would all engage in what it means to make disciples. Because discipleship has to be relational. So this church can only be as deep as we are individually being relational with our community. If all we want is just to listen to somebody preach to us, there's a lot better preachers online. They're really good. They intimidate me sometimes. Like, man, they're just so good. But if we want to grow in discipleship, we come together and we be the body and we grow in relationship with one another. So the challenge is going to be, what would it look like to make it a personal desire that we do not leave this year without investing in making a disciple? Each of us, not just some of us, not just the group leaders. What would it look like for each of us to say, you know what, I'm gonna put on my next 4 months challenge to make a disciple? I think a big question is how. And again, we're gonna dig into this a lot more over the course of the next 8 weeks. But I wanna give 3 simple points, and we're gonna say this somewhat often, and you'll probably hear some other versions of this throughout these 8 weeks. But how? Number 1, you pray. You pray for a specific individual, or you pray, God, would you show me someone in my life that you are seeking out? Someone that you is a soul that has not found its home, that is in my world. Would you show me who that is? God, would you give me opportunities? Would you put people right in front of me that are engaging in conversation with me? Would you provide opportunities? You pray for, and you pray for that individual that God does bring you. Number 2, you invest in relationship. It has to be relational. Rarely do you hear the story of the guy screaming on the street corner is why I'm following Jesus today, because it's relational. God can use whoever, wherever, whenever he wants, but discipleship is relational. So you invest in relationship. You invite them over for dinner. You go to their kids' sporting event. You check in on how that doctor's appointment went that they were worried about. Like, you be relational with somebody. You invest in it. And thirdly, you invite to gospel opportunities. You pray for, you invest in relationship, and you invite to gospel opportunities. That doesn't mean specifically church. I'm not saying invite to church is the only answer. I think church is a gospel opportunity that some people don't know how to communicate the gospel very well. Well, you're a part of a body with people who have that gift set. Invite people here. But sometimes the invitation to coffee is going to intentionally be an invitation to share the faith that you have, the hope that you've discovered. It's going to be an opportunity to ask if you can pray for them and share what God's done in your life. But you invite them to gospel opportunities. You pray for, you invest in relationship, and you invite to gospel opportunities. Again, I want to say it's not specifically on the church as far as a Sunday morning gathering to be the source of discipleship, but I want to tell you again that the church is a community of gifts that God has brought together to be used in every fashion, in every form, to let people know that they're loved, they're valued, and to use the gifts God's given the individuals to disciple. I want to tell you there could be pressure if it's just me. I've got I've got some gifts, but I've got a lot of gifts I don't have. The Bible talks a ton about there's the fivefold ministry of the apostle, the evangelist, the prophet, the teacher, the preacher. But then there's also all these spiritual gifts. The Spirit gives us various spiritual gifts, and we don't all get to pick and choose which gifts we have, and we don't all get all of them. What we need is a body of believers where, hey, I've got some way I can contribute here, but there's some gaps in how I could disciple you, so we want to bring you into community because this community has a lot of the gift sets that I don't have that can be valuable in bringing you into faith. So I want to tell you, the goal is not just invite them to church. But I do believe the greatest way that we can grow is when we grow together, when we utilize the various gift sets that God has brought inside of this body, and we can make those connections and we can build those relationships, and we can grow best as we utilize all the different skill sets that God has brought and given. I also truly believe, again, this is not just about how many people can we pack in a room, but I believe that true followers, disciples of Jesus, understand his vision for the church and will be a part of a church community, will be engaged. As we've talked about in our He is Worthy series, what it means to live out a priestly calling. I believe as we grow in discipleship, grow as followers of Jesus, we will find ourselves desiring to be rooted in a community where we can live out that calling. We can minister to the Lord, and we can minister to others, and we can be in a space where our needs can be met, and we can be fed, and we can grow together. So I do believe the church is a valuable component that Jesus gave us to be a part of discipleship, but I want to make it clear again that church alone, church attendance alone on a Sunday morning is not the extent of discipleship. Meaning the church being a body, a people, the church being a people, and the church being a gathering are not at odds with each other. I think sometimes we sense this, but I want to say the church being a gathering and the church being a body, again, this goes hand in hand. Meaning that you asking out to coffee or you checking in on how that doctor's appointment was could be just as valuable as a sermon that is preached from stage. That we are all working together. What does it mean to build this relationship? That we are a body, and the church as a gathering has valuable components, but the church being the church when it's not Sunday mornings is so incredibly essential and valuable as well. So here's the question. When this life is over, what do we have to show for it? We make it to eternity. We're in the presence of God. We lived out as faithfully as we could on this earth. Will we have to show for his priorities or my spiritual priorities? I just think it would be a bit tragic if we get to eternity and we've got like a really marked up Bible and we've got a really good attendance record at church, and we actually, we served in different capacities, and we gave financially, and our iPhone was full of worship music, and we have all these like elements of faithfulness, and yet there were people in our lives that we had opportunities to invest in, and we didn't. What does it mean if we show up in eternity and we've got all these good check marks that made us feel good about our faith, but there's no one that we've like brought along with us or that is coming behind us, that God has allowed us to have opportunities in their lives to share the hope that we have found. Let's bring it again, not just at the end of life, but let's bring it into the end of this year. We got 4 months left, almost. What do we have to show for at the end of these 4 months? As a church, corporately and individually. As a church, if at the end of these 4 months, what we get to look back on is like, well, more people who are already followers of Jesus sat in our room together, and we got more views on YouTube, and people are excited. There's more people who are comfortable Christians within our community. If that's what we have at the end of the year, I think we have vastly missed the point. That God's priority was discipleship, was investing in those who don't have hope and faith in Jesus. I want to tell you, if just our comfortable, fun gatherings and just being together and other believers coming together, if that's what defines us, I think we've missed the point. Because we do not exist to keep Christians comfortable. We exist to see the lost found and the found anchored in the hope of Jesus. That is our calling. That is our vision. That is our passion. Now, can this also be a place where Christians enjoy being and they love the community and they find fulfillment here? Absolutely. The church is supposed to be that. But our primary purpose on this earth as this church plant is not to keep as many people comfortable as we can. It is a focused mission that we believe is the priority of Jesus, to see the lost found and the found anchored in the hope of Jesus. And that is not just the task of your paid staff. That is who we are. If this is your church, if this is your community, this is what we are called to do and who we are called to be. That we evangelize and we disciple, all of us. Our success is not determined by how many people show up in this room. And I know that's a lot of people's measure of success is like, well, how many people are coming? Oh, are you guys growing? And I think those are fine questions, and I think that it's something that needs to be evaluated. But our success is not how many people showed up between now and 4 months from now. Our success is, are we a community that's reproducing? Are we a people who not just enjoy our church community, but we're bought into the priorities of our King? We're bought into the priorities of Jesus. Yes, I love this place, and also I'm so caught up in the calling of Jesus that I am personally invested in evangelism and in discipleship. I'm going to ask the band if you'll join me. This probably could be said as the church at large, but I want to zero in and not just look out there. I want to look inside at who we are as Anchor Church. It's hard to know numbers of who calls Anchor their home, but I do know this. There's a growing number of people coming to Anchor Church, which is wonderful, which is beautiful. But I believe, and I feel, and I try to evaluate, I believe that statistically, the number of spiritual moms and dads we have in this community is fairly low. It's great to celebrate new faces, and I don't think we bypass that, but I want to tell you, the vision that God has given this community is not to just gather disciples, but to make disciples. And that means there needs to be a high percentage of spiritual moms and dads. I want to tell you, I have a dream, and I have a vision, and I have a passion burning inside of me that Anchor Church would be a place full of spiritual moms and dads. And then they become spiritual grandparents and great-grandparents because we are bringing people and showing them the hope of Jesus. And then they're being matured in discipleship, and they're reaching out, and they're making disciples. I have a vision, and I have a hope, and I have a prayer that we would be spiritual moms and dads all across this room. I dream of one day, a few years from now, you, every one of you, regardless of how mature your faith is right now, I have a dream in a couple years from now, you sitting in this room or whatever room God gives us, and you can look around and you can see people who were far from Jesus today, surrendered to Him, because God allowed you the opportunity to be involved in their lives. What would it be like to just sit back and see there's a spiritual child, there's a spiritual child, there's a spiritual grandkid, and just to see what God could do when we engage in His calling for this community. I want to say this is not later. This is not when you're more mature. This isn't at certain ages. I believe that we're going to have spiritual parents that are incredibly young. I'll just brag on my little boy real quick. His name's Finley. He's 6 years old. And I just love that he's not learned to be ashamed of his faith yet. And I hope he never does. But last year, kindergarten or first year in a public school, it's normal conversation for him to tell his friends about his faith in God and what he believes about Jesus. It's a normal conversation, and he just shares what he believes, and he's not worried about it. And today, there's a family in this church who is growing spiritually, who's being invested in because of their kindergartner last year sharing what Finley had said and bringing them to church. And today, there's a family that is maturing and growing in discipleship because Finley, at 5 years old, is becoming a spiritual father. I think it's incredible. I'm not sure how he's doing on the discipleship end yet. We got a little work to do. But I have a dream that we've got children in the other room right now, 6, 7, 8 years old, that will be spiritual mom and dads. Spiritual mom and dads, they're biological mom and dads. Because they're sharing the hope that they have found in Jesus. What would it be like to have your middle schooler be the spiritual mom and dad of your parents, their grandparents? What would it be like if we were a body that gets the priorities of Jesus? We don't just show up to church because it's fun. We show up because we are bought into a mission that the lost would be found and the found would be anchored. Here's your simple challenge for each and every one of us. One disciple, 4 months. The reason we titled this Double Vision is because I really believe, I don't know how often, but our church should always be doubling because everybody's engaged in reaching out. I have a vision that this church is going to double, and I want to tell you, hopefully I've made this clear already. It's not about patting ourselves on the back about how many people are here. It's because we are passionate about being people engaging in the priorities of Jesus. And even if Anchor Church doesn't double, the kingdom should double because of the impact we've made. They don't have to come to this church. There's other amazing churches that maybe feeds them better than this church will, and that they can engage and minister to the Lord better than they can here. It's not just about this, but we as an impact, we should have double vision all the time. What would it look like for us in these next 9 weeks to just get this vision and this passion and we each reach one? And whether they show up in this building or not, what God has done in our lives, it just now gets doubled into somebody else's. I don't know what the timeline is, but I don't think a year is too crazy that we should just be double vision all the time. In 4 months, we're going to go into a brand new year. What's it look like to have double vision once again? Okay, this year, I'm going to invest in one. And if we do this together, the impact that we can make, again, not just of how many people show up and watch us online, but are actually living out the call that God has on our lives. The goal is not our numerical growth, but I believe the results of us following the call of God, us engaging with His priority, no doubt will bring growth, which will bring more problems. This room's decently full right now. That's going to bring some problems if we double. So be ready to engage and serve and give and figure out what's next. We're going to engage in what it means to see the lost found and the found anchor. And we're going to do it as long as God allows us, because He has given us a limited amount of time on this beautiful sliver of planet called Western Montana for a small amount of time. And I want to be most effective in this small amount of time on this small part of the planet. So we'll give and we'll pray and we'll serve and we'll invest in relationships and we'll invite to gospel opportunities, and we will have double vision because our goal is not to just have a good attendance record and a marked up Bible. Our goal is that, God, you let me for a small season of time be a participant in you building your church. You let me for a small season of time be a participant in sharing the gospel. Jesus is doing His thing. He is going to build His church whether we engage or not, but He gives us the opportunity to be a part of it. If you're willing and able, would you stand with me? Whether you're in this room or you're watching online, I just want to say, if you today don't consider yourself a follower of Jesus, you don't consider yourself a Christian, I love that you're still here, and I love that you're still watching. I want to tell you, Jesus is still seeking out those who are lost. I want to tell you, I believe that Jesus is seeking you out. That's why you're still here. That's why you're still listening. I want to tell you, you are fully known, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you are fully loved. He didn't come to seek and save those who deserved it. He didn't come to seek and save those who are trying really hard to get saved. He said He came to seek and save those who are they're lost. Their soul hasn't found a home. You are fully known and you are fully loved. And the greatest experience that we get this side of eternity is experiencing that all-consuming, beautiful love of Jesus. His hope, His forgiveness, His grace. I want to tell you, today is a beautiful day for you to say, Jesus, take my soul home. I want hope. I want forgiveness. I want everything I've been longing for in this life. I want to find it in you. I want to tell you, if that's you today, you don't have to say any certain words. You don't have to have a certain type of response. It's faith. It's what's going on in your heart right now, saying yes to Jesus. I would tell you, if today was a moment where evangelism took place for you, where you heard the gospel and you desire to respond to it, we do not want to just speak the gospel and then hope you figure it out. We want to see the lost found and the found anchored. Here's a way you can help us with our vision. We've got online, as well as there's some hard copies on your way out, these little cards that say, I have decided. It's really simple. It's just a name and the best way to contact you and a checkbox. If I've decided to follow Jesus, it would mean the world to us if we could know that you've made this decision so that we can take the steps to go past evangelism and start moving into discipleship. Those of you that are online, our website, goanchorchurch.com, you can find the I've Decided card there as well. Those of you with smartphones, the QR code in the chair in front of you, you can click that. It'll bring up a link where you can also hit the I've Decided card. And really simple. We would just love to follow up with you. If you're here today and you are a follower of Jesus, Anchor Church is your home. We have limited time. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but our time on this earth is limited. Therefore, we prioritize. The priority of our commander, our leader, our king, our savior is that the lost will be found and the found would be anchored. I'm going to ask you, will you step up to God's priority? On your chairs when you came in, there was a card and a pen. By now, if you looked at it, you probably know what it means. It's a really simple checklist. This is something that I'm going to challenge you to, over this next song, to pray. And I'm going to pray and ask you to pray that God would give you a name. And on that card, you're going to write the name of somebody that's on your heart, in your life, someone you go to school with, someone you work with, someone you live next to, someone you've been in a relationship for a really long time. Some of you, it's a relative, a parent, it's a kid. But you're going to put a name on there that God's put on your heart. And then there's 3 simple checks. I'm going to ask you to keep that card with you. The check 1 is you're praying for them. You've been praying for them, check it off. Number 2 is you've invested in relationship. Don't check that off till you call them, you go out to coffee, you invite them over for dinner, you take them something to their house. Invest in relationship. Go to the concert with them. Go to the sporting event with them. Invest in relationship. And number 3 is invite them to a gospel opportunity. Again, that may or may not be Anchor Church. It may or may not be a church gathering at all. But you actually present an opportunity for them to experience the gospel. I'm going to ask you before you leave, don't say I'll think about this later. Before you leave, write a name on that card. Not that you can't add names to it later. And then we got 4 months. We're going to pray for it. We're going to invest in relationships. And we're going to invite them to gospel opportunities. And just see what God's going to do. I just pray that we've got double vision, that each one of us is going to see the lost found and the found anchored because God allowed us to participate. Father, we love you. I just ask right now you'd put on each one of our hearts names, multiple names, individual names, families that we've been in relationship with. God, you would just give us right now coworkers, fellow classmates. God, right now you just begin putting names, faces on our hearts. God, I pray that people maybe we haven't even met yet, but in the next 4 months, we're going to meet them. And the reason you brought them into our lives at this point is because you have highlighted within us the importance of reaching out, building in relationship, and inviting to gospel opportunities. God, I pray that you give us individually double vision, that regardless of the growth of Anchor Church, that we would have kingdom impact that doubles anything that we've seen before, because everyone here is engaged in what it means to follow your priorities. Father, we love you. Would you just speak to us right now on who to reach out, how to invest, and how to invite? We love you. Amen.